Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Tuesday evening with us here. Last week, we had a lesson from the archive. Apologies about that. Moving places, so we couldn't help ourselves, but we had to miss out. So hope you guys enjoyed the recorded lesson. Today, we're going to carry on with the article of Arvut, item number 23, as we have been doing before. In the meantime, though, the friends have said that there are two questions that came in, one with an email, and the other one was during the recorded lesson of last week. So let's first answer those two questions and then we'll move forward. Now, the first question that came is from Isoke. He's asking, can you expand a bit on what spiritual states are, and how we can recognize, scrutinize them in ourselves and 10. Well, a spiritual state is a state where I'm not thinking about myself and my calculations are completely in favor of others. So how can we discern such a thing? Well, we can only discern such a thing when we've come to that kind of an attitude or behavior, so that I'm on the one hand in my egoistic desire to receive, because as we progress our correction, we're on the desire to receive. And in addition to that egoistic desire, the will to receive that I have, I attain another attribute, and I can only have a discernment in between these two opposite states. So the most important thing for anyone studying the wisdom of Kabbalah is to first attain that first level of spirituality, because once I attain that first level, which is actually the hardest level, the rest are just coming one after the other. It's like being born, right? So it's hard to get, it's hard to be born, but once you're born, that's it. You're going with the flow of life. So that's kind of how it is. So once we have those two discernments, it'll be clear for us. At the moment, when we're just in our desire to receive for ourselves, we can only discern all calculations that we make from our desire to receive for ourselves. Okay, so without attaining the other side, the real essence of bestowal, the attribute of bestowal, unfortunately, we're just playing around with the concept of bestowal at the moment. But how can you do that in the 10? By trying to help your friends as much as you can. So the more I help other people progress in spirituality, it means I'm dealing less and less with myself. So the more I'm helping others, the more actually what I'm doing is actually restricting myself. So we're not going head on, restricting ourselves from all kinds of worldly things like religions do. But no, what we want to do is grow the good side up. We want to grow the good in us. Okay, we want to develop the good attributes of love and bestowal in us. So the more we want to develop that, the more we behave and act in that direction towards the benefit of others. And the benefit of others, as you can see, is not, giving people food and drink. The benefit of others is really to help them come to the purpose of life. That really is the benefit to others. That's the only real benefit, because at the end of the day, if we do all kinds of worldly good deeds to other people without really informing people about the meaning of life, it doesn't mean much, because they're always going to need food. There's always going to be some problem somewhere. The most important thing, therefore, is to help others to get to the purpose of life, because if we understand that the whole of creation is connected and interconnected, and our good life depends on the interconnectedness of everyone, then that's actually bestowing. So if I'm helping my friends in the 10 to develop in that direction, I'm actually bestowing to them, aren't I? Okay. And the more I do it, I'm going to have an inner conflict with my desire to receive for myself, because the more I do things for the benefit of others, my nature is going to start, telling me, hey, what's going on? Why aren't you looking after yourself? So then I'm left in a dilemma. Because this is how you can measure it. The only way you can measure it without getting into spirituality, you can even measure it in corporeality by acting and doing good deeds towards others. And then your desire to receive over time will be against that situation. And then you can have a clear-cut understanding and discernment of what your nature is truly like and what you would like to be. I hope that answers your question. But if not, you can always ask again, and we can discuss it again and come to other discernments and ideas. Another question. This is from Luletto, and this came in with email. And hi, I have been learning Kabbalah all on my own. Hi, I have been learning Kabbalah all on my own in Indonesia. I've been meaning to ask, how should we bestow back to the Creator? If we give too much, wouldn't we exhaust our resources? Essentially, we have to earn money in order to bestow a present to a friend, right? Please help. That's nice. That's a nice question. So how should we live our lives as well, right? How should we organize and arrange our day-to-day corporeality and also come to bestow, okay? And if we're going to bestow, well, how am I going to get by, okay? So that's a nice and fair question. Well, look, bestowing doesn't necessarily mean that I have to go out there and buy things to people. Right now, we're having a lesson together, okay? And by trying to improve ourselves in this lesson, or for example, we've got friends here in the background, they're working, right? They work to get this broadcast set up. When you send questions, they archive them so we can answer them. If there's anybody in need of a technical assistant, they help them out and so on. I'm teaching and they're all helping me to teach. And if it wasn't for them, I wouldn't be able to do this broadcast on my own. So there are a lot of people here who've taken time from their Tuesday evening, okay, without giving money to anybody, okay, but helping them to develop spiritually, okay? And that's something that we're giving from our own time. Okay, we all have families, kids, work. We all have all those things, right? We all work as well. In fact, a student of Kabbalah is a very, very standard, normal human being. They have family, kids. They work like everybody else. They're a complete part of society. They don't live out on a mountaintop. They don't go and live in a monastery and close themselves up. No, not at all. They live amongst the people, with the people, like the people. And from within society, they develop spiritually, because the whole idea of actually developing spiritually is to bring the interconnectedness of everything together. So you don't have to start, giving people money and so forth. The first and most important thing you should do if you're studying on your own, first of all, mind you, I have a student from Indonesia called Pandu, but he lives in London, and I'm actually their moderator as well. They're in the UK group, and Pandu does this translation, I think, to the Indonesian language. I think you've got a main language there. All right. So he's a great friend of ours. He lives in the UK. So what you can do, right? Initially do this, focus on learning the wisdom of Kabbalah. What it's talking about? What's the meaning of life? How can I get to the meaning of life? What does it mean to be a desire to receive? And what does it mean to be a desire to bestow, or a will to bestow, or an intention to bestow? So as we study more and more, things will settle down. In our corporeal life, we live just like everybody else. All right. So maintain your corporeal structure, your family, your work, your job, whatever. And it doesn't mean that you have to go out and now give presents or buy things or give out your money. Okay. Sustain your life just like a normal being, like a normal human in society. And on top of that, though, adding this knowledge will allow you to develop, and from within the development, you'll be able to find answers on how you can manage your life. The wisdom of Kabbalah is a very special wisdom because it allows us to separate corporeality and our spiritual development. Now, you might think, but shouldn't they be going hand in hand? Well, if we can manage them hand in hand, they can. But if at this moment I can't reconcile them, it doesn't have to be. So I can keep them separately. I can focus on studying the wisdom of Kabbalah. And through the things that I've learned and experienced, I can then take all that knowledge, wisdom, and the experience and apply it in my day-to-day life. And then I can see how it works out and doesn't work out. I can test myself. Okay. So it's a very dynamic, very fluid, very personal way of development, actually. So if you just take on the study and getting your, improving your knowledge base, and so on, it'll settle down in time. Now, another thing is, if you're in Indonesia, you can also, if you want to study with a bunch of people, or you want to be a part of a society or a community or a group, you can go to Kabbalah.info, and you can also join the KabU environment, where you can learn online as well with like-minded people. And that'll also be good, because in time they can then put you in touch with the Asia group. For example, we've got a really nice Asia group. I used to be in the Asia group as well, because I used to live in Sydney, Australia. And then that was like, it's really good. You can have people around you. You can be in touch with other people, and you can study, and you can, be a part of a group where your development will be much faster. All right. So in the meantime, though, keep them separate. Your corporeal life can be on its own, and your spiritual development can be on its own, until you're mature enough and knowledgeable enough to bridge the gap and kind of combine them together. Okay. And that's it, right? Just 2 questions we had, I do believe. Let's carry on with the article. All right. So if you have any questions also during this article, feel free to ask, and we'll try to find an answer together. So article, the Arvut, Mutual Responsibility. You can find this on Kabbalah.info, and we're carrying on from item number 23. Here we go. With these words, we clearly understand what we said above in item 5 about the Torah being given specifically to the Israeli nation. Now, if you just landed from the sky, okay, and you have no idea what we studied before, okay, it's a good idea to listen to what we studied before, because we're right in the middle of an article here, and without, really knowing the beginning may not be very helpful for you. With these words, we clearly understand what we said above in item 5 about the Torah being given specifically to the Israeli nation, because it is certain and unequivocal that the purpose of creation lies on the shoulders of the whole of the human race, black or white or yellow, without any essential difference. Now, the Israeli nation is obviously not the Israeli nation they're talking about in the Middle East, right? Israel means Yashar El, straight to the Creator. So anybody who directs himself to attain the meaning of life, which is to attain the attribute of love and bestowal, is called Israel, Yashar El, towards the Creator, right? That's Israel. So a lot of people get this concept wrong, and it turns into some kind of a religious phenomena, right? You cannot be spiritual with your passport, all right? So obviously it's got nothing to do with being a part of a nation at a corporeal level. It's not going to work out for you. The important thing here is to understand that the Torah means the teaching, right? It's a user manual where you can attract the light. So Torah for us, our Torah, for example, is the wisdom of Kabbalah. Okay, and the wisdom of Kabbalah comes, as you know, from Adam, because that's the first person who discovered spirituality, who discovered a high level of consciousness, and from there on developed it. So let's read that again. With these words, we clearly understand what we said above in item 5 about the Torah, about the wisdom of Kabbalah being specifically given to the Israeli nation, to a group of people who aspire for spirituality, because it is certain and unequivocal that the purpose of creation lies on the shoulders of the whole of human race, black or white or yellow, without any essential difference. This is why our group can be from anywhere. All right, so as you can see, we've got a friend from Indonesia, we've got a friend from Africa, we've got friends from Europe, US, Asia, all over the world, okay? It doesn't matter where you're from, but at the end of the day, the whole of humanity will have to come to the purpose of creation. There is no getting around that one, okay? So all of us will have to come to the purpose of creation, and if we aspire to attain spirituality, then obviously our Torah, the wisdom of Kabbalah, is going to help us to transform our nature of self-reception or reception for myself into using that as a vessel for bestowal. Let's read again. Let's read the following paragraph. But because of the descent of human nature to the lowest degree, which is the self-love that rules over all of humanity without restraint, there was no way to negotiate with them and persuade them to agree to take upon themselves, even as a mere promise, to exit their narrow world into the wide space of the love of others. The exception was the Israeli nation, because they were enslaved in the savage kingdom of Egypt for 400 years in horrible torments. Now, it sounds like a little bit of a Hollywood story. You know, they always have this Moses, Egypt, and all kinds of movies done about it. But if you think about it from a spiritual concept, we understand what Egypt is, right? Egypt is our desire to receive for ourselves, our egoistic nature, wanting to rule everything, wanting to control life, know everything, and really fill our pockets and our bellies to the maximum that we can. Right? That's what Egypt is. And why is that horrible? Well, we're actually living the same situation, right? We are currently in Egypt globally. And what are we going through? For thousands of years, we've developed with our egoistic nature, and all we have done is kill each other, right? So it's been war after war, hunger, all kinds of viruses, all kinds of natural disasters. We've just been going through, I don't know, a meat grinder, you know? And imagine you got this meat and, you know, they're constantly putting it into the minced meat grinder, right? So you're constantly getting minced up. And if you throw the same meat into the meat grinder 10 times, then you're going to get really pure. It's going to be a really soft and mushy. And that's what's really happening to humanity, because we're going through sufferings and sufferings and sufferings. And what that's really doing is softening us up. Okay. It's really softening us up, and it's bringing about the question to all of us: why are we living like nothing's working out? Why isn't anything working out? Okay. And humanity will understand that at a mass level, especially in our generation, as we're going to go through deeper crises with global shortages, inflation, economy going downtown big time. So we're going to go through a lot of dramas together globally. And as that happens, we will begin to understand and ask ourselves really, well, why are we going through these things? Okay. Can there be another way? Okay. And this is what Egypt is all about. So Egypt is very important in a person's spiritual development. Now, because our human nature is really low, okay, it's impossible for everyone to kind of awaken at the same time. Also, we don't really want to be awoken as well. If you think about it, right, our nature is egoistic. If I was to now get the things I want in life, would I really chase spirituality? I don't think so. Nobody would. I mean, imagine if you're getting the things you want in life, who would go for spirituality? Nobody would. So why are we coming to spirituality? Well, on the one hand, we feel like our life, even though we may have, you know, what we need in life, still feels empty. It feels like we're not getting any taste. It just feels like purposeless. And on the other hand, what we may see in the world is the world going worse and worse with every generation, right? So it's constantly going from bad to worse, bad to worse, bad to worse. And when everything comes together, me plus the world, we can see that we're all developing kind of in sequence, right? So first of all, the person who's going through this emptiness in life has a point in the heart which awakens and asks the question, why am I living? So that's one phase of development for that individual. That individual still has a lot of corporeal desires, egoistic ones, okay? But that enlightened point has awoken. And then there's the rest of humanity. And they're constantly going through all kinds of dramas in life, one after the other, getting squeezed in order for them to also ask, well, what are we living for? Right? So there's the individual development, and there's the masses, the development of the masses, the general development of human society. Now we're at such a period where these are very, very close to each other. Okay, so for example, we've got a bunch of friends who want to develop spiritually, and we're moving forward in that spiritual development. And then the whole world, as you can see, is coming behind us as well. They're following us really, because what we went through individually, the darkness that we went through at an individual level, and asked ourselves a question about the meaning of life, they're now going to be asking the same thing, but that's coming through the world squeezing us. Okay? So they're actually going through the same things also. As humanity, we're all going through the same kind of routine. So we have to understand that for a person to be convinced that bestowal to others and the love of others is good, our nature really has to be convinced by a lot of, negative feelings, let's say, all right, or suffering. Right, if you imagine the amount of suffering humanity's gone through and what could, lay ahead, we have no idea. It could be quite a lot. So humanity's suffering, on the one hand, softens humanity. It begins them to search for a better way of living. And it allows us to do that while we're still egoistic. Okay. So while we're in our egoism, we can still ask about, well, how are we going to live better? Right? And if we understand egoistically, complete without any spiritual content, if we understand that the only way to manage our lives happily and peacefully together is by being good to each other, then that's at an egoistic level, but that's already with a direction, in a good direction. Okay. And that's how humanity will develop. We'll have to develop as we're voluntarily developing, we'll have to develop through the society that we're building, through the community that we're building, so that this community can actually advance consciously without the beatings of life, without the sufferings of life. We can elevate ourselves consciously to a higher level. Okay. So by being enslaved in Egypt, meaning being enslaved in our egoistic nature, we begin to feel torments in life at an individual level and at a global level. And that allows us to develop. Okay, if we were not egoistic, if we did not have an egoistic desire to receive for ourselves, we would not have developed as humanity. We'd be like animals today. All right, like a cat a few hundred years ago is the same cat as today. All right, that's it. And going nowhere. Okay, still going to be a cat. Okay. But humans, we have the option. We can change. Okay, so we have a potential to be something much higher than our animal level of existence. So that is where egoism is taking us. It is the wheel of development. That's what human egoism is. Our sages said, as salt sweetens meat, agony polishes man's sins. This means that they bring to the body great purification. In addition, the purification of their holy fathers assisted them, as said in item 16, which is the most important, as some of the verses of the Torah testify. So on the one hand, suffering really softens us up. We can also see this in our life, right? As we get older and older, we begin to withdraw ourselves from chasing all kinds of desires that we used to when we were young. Okay, because you just understand it's just not worth running after. Okay, why? Because life has taught you the hard way that running around chasing all kinds of things is just going to get you into trouble. Okay, and you're in trouble once, you're in trouble twice, and already on the third time you're thinking, you know what, forget it. Let me just refrain from everything. Just shut up and sit down and have some peace of mind, right? Why? Because we learn through hard experiences. And this is how it happens with an individual, and also humanity is the same thing that's happening, right? As we're developing more and more, we're going through more dramas, and humanity as a collective body will also come to gradually they'll come to an understanding where they'll say, listen, we just cannot carry on living like this. That's it. So, because of these two forewords, they were qualified for it. This is why the text refers to them in singular form. As it is written, and Israel camped there before the mountain with our sages interpreted as one man with one heart. Okay, so this is like going into a bit of a biblical story, okay, but the whole concept here is this. If we do not cooperate and connect properly, so that everybody in the society, in the community, in the society, globally, and at the end of it, it will be the whole of humanity. If we do not connect properly so that everyone is looked after, none of us will have a peace of mind. So, for example, they've got a good life in Europe, or I don't know, the US or Australia, New Zealand, wherever, like these nice countries in the West. Okay. Now, if there's a problem in Africa, if there's a problem in Asia, if there's a problem in the Middle East, okay, what's going on? Right? They're getting all the migrants, aren't they? Why? Because if one part of society globally cannot look after itself, while the others are taking more than their share, then obviously there's going to be conflict, isn't it? It's going to be a situation where everybody loses out. So the whole world needs to be balanced out with what we take, what we consume. And if everybody is looked after, everyone will be happy, because nobody will have the need to cause harm to somebody else. There won't be a need for it. So the important thing here is, because each and every person from the nation completely detached himself from self-love and wanted only to benefit his friend, as we have shown in item 16, regarding the meaning of the commandment, love your friend as thyself. It turns out that all the individuals in the nation had come together and become one heart and one man, for only when they were qualified to receive, only then they were qualified to receive the Torah. So only then they were qualified to have spiritual attainment. That's what it means to receive the Torah. Obviously, there are no books coming down from the sky with winged angels or whatever, like some depiction in a Hollywood movie or some fantasy book. Okay, spiritual attainment is what is called attaining or receiving the Torah. So you're going to a higher level of consciousness. Here, what we all need to understand is, like I said a minute ago, that the same thing is just like the same principle is true for a family. It's true for the community. It's true for the country. It's true for the world. Okay, just like a drop of water from the lake is the same water as the lake itself. So just like a family needs to stick together and they need to fix things up amongst themselves, they need to unite and be unified against everything that's going on. Just like the community has to be in order to protect itself and maintain its existence, just like a nation, a country has to do that to maintain its existence, the world will also need to do that to maintain its existence. Currently, we see all the borders on the maps and stuff, but that's just a transient thing. I mean, we don't really feel like we're living inside borders. Everybody can live anywhere they want now. Everybody can move anywhere. Right, so you can change cities, you can change countries. You know, I've changed a few countries myself over the course of my lifetime, and anybody can do that now. It's not that difficult. Okay, but that's not the whole point. The whole point here is that no matter where you live, no matter what you do, even the pair of jeans I'm wearing, it's like going through 14, 15 countries before it becomes a pair of jeans. Why? Because the cotton's from somewhere, the machinery's from somewhere, I don't know, the thread is from somewhere else, the labor is from somewhere else. It's just going through all kinds of places to become one product for me to use. And that is just a simple pair of jeans. Okay. And if you now think about the global crises we're going through, the wheat shortage we're going through, right? The energy shortages we're going through. So Europe is going back to coal. Okay, they want to get rid of coal so they can be, they can have clean air. Now what's going on? Right now they're going back to coal. Why? Because they've got a drama with Russia. Okay, so they've got sanctions on Russia. So Russia's saying, well, I'm not giving you natural gas. So where are they going to get the energy from before they all get, electricity cuts, power cuts? How's that going to work out? So they have to go back to the coal mines now. It's not going back to like 100 years ago. Okay, think of it. It's like going back 100 years. So what's that telling us? It's telling us that one war, one fight between two countries is actually impacting everybody. Okay, so obviously whoever starts a war is going to be worse off. Okay, because Russia's economy is going to deplete. But while that's depleted, Ukrainian people are suffering, Russian people are suffering, the Europeans are going to be suffering now with the energy crisis. Then we've got the wheat crisis. Now they've got inflation all over the world because we can't find cooking oil in India. How's that? Okay, it's just one big mess, as you can see. Why? Because two countries are having a drama. So all of us need to understand that this concept of mutual responsibility is not just a spiritual thing, it's a law of nature. It's a law of life. We either get this right or none of us really survive. Okay, so we're all either going to share and live together, or we're just going to dismantle and dissolve and not be able to exist. So this is a law of nature that we need to understand. So just like an individual, a family unit has to be united, then the whole world also needs to be in that same format if it wants to exist in a good way. If not, one problem after another is going to be coming our way. So the most important thing here is for us to realize that the only way to elevate ourselves above all the problems we're going through is to come to this connection, this correct connection between us, which is what the Wisdom of Kabbalah is teaching us, so that we can relate to ourselves, everybody else in the correct way, and that way nobody will miss anything. Okay, can you hear the dogs barking? Oh, okay, sorry about that. Okay. As you can see, okay, there you go. So I'm not in the studio, so there you go. All right, so I hope it's not too loud. By the way, that's not my dog. Item number 24. Thus, because of the above necessity, the Torah was giving specifically to the Israeli nation, solely to the descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Now, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob mean there's Keter, Chochmah, Binah, and Hesed, Gevurah, Tiferet, right? So the 10 Sephirot is a whole structure. And within that whole Sephirot, there's Abraham, which is Chesed, Isaac, which is Gevurah, and Jacob, which is Tiferet, right? So it's a structure because they're already at an elevated state. Now then, for it was inconceivable that any stranger would take part in it, yet because of this, the Israeli nation had been constructed as a sort of gateway by which sparks of purity would flow onto the entire human race throughout the world. Well, that's exactly what Bnei Baruch is doing at the moment, right? So all of us from around the world are coming together in order to build this structure called like the 10 Sephirot, okay? 10 Sephirot is actually a structure of reality, how everything has been composed as a template. So if we, all of us who are studying with Bnei Baruch, come together in mutual responsibility, this actually allows us to also influence the whole of reality. Why? Because if we are one structure, if we're one body, if we're one soul, think about it, right? If one part is developing, then what's going to happen is that going to have that ripple effect. So the ripple effect will begin to expand and it'll have to like influence everybody else. This is why gradually, a lot of people begin to hear and understand what we're talking about. Millions and millions of people. Why? Because on the one hand, the world is deteriorating. And on the other hand, well, we're saying why? Well, it's deteriorating because of this. And we also have a solution for it. Okay? And this is why Bnei Baruch, just like here, previously that group who called themselves, they came out of Babylon and they called themselves Israel, that same group became a passageway to a group of people who elevated themselves to spirituality. We're actually doing the same thing. So the process that we're going through, just like I said a minute ago, for an individual or for the general humanity is the same thing. We're going through the same stuff they were going through thousands of years ago. Okay, so in our period, it's also a very special period since we've come to this final development, final point that we can no longer go beyond with our egoistic development, because we're beginning to understand that there's just no more we can go. There's nowhere we can go, and there's no other level that we can get to with our egoistic nature. There's no going forward with egoism anymore. So we're gradually understanding that as the whole of humanity as well. And this is why our generation is very, very important, because we have mass awakenings in people. And these sparks multiply daily like one who gives to the treasurer until they're filled sufficiently, meaning until they develop to such an extent that they can understand the pleasantness and tranquility that are found in the kernel of love of others. For then they will know how to shift the balance to the side of merit and will place themselves under his burden, and the side of sin will be eradicated from the earth. All right, so this is a bit of an old article, right, as you can see. So sins and all that kind of stuff, as you know, is just our bad, evil inclination. So if we were born egoistically, with an egoist nature, there's nothing you can do about it, right? We're all sinners, we're all bad, okay? Because we're egoists. There's nothing we can do about it except to take on this challenge or accept the burden, as he says here, and build ourselves to a better state. Now, there's a reason why we're created bad. Because we're created egotistically, there cannot be any good in our nature. Just think about it for a second, right? Egoism means I give myself importance. If I give myself importance, it means it's taking from the importance of others. And if that's the situation, it means everybody else, from my perspective, will always be second class, or third, or fourth, or fifth, or 10th, doesn't matter. So if from all our perspective, from everybody's individual perspective, that's how it is, because we're egoists, that's how it is, then there cannot be any good. So the accumulating evil, the accumulating bad circumstances allow us to give birth to a new state from this horrific state. And that's how we can develop. So just like the Creator created evil out of nothing, because there was no such thing as evil before man was created. Just like we were created out of nothing, completely new, so can we create something completely new, which is called good, the real good, not what we think is good in our egoistic nature, but what really is good according to the laws of nature, or according to the Creator, which are the same things actually. Okay. Any questions? There is one question. Okay, that's fine. Patricia's asking, how do we balance desires in the 10 meetings? Some want only hard work with no socializing, and some want the opposite. Well, if everybody wants to do their own thing, we're not going to have a balance, are we? Balance is when we all want the same thing. So if some people want some hardcore work, some people want to socialize, some people want to do this and that, you have to come to an agreement. Maybe you can do hardcore work for like a few days, work hard, and then maybe you can come to the weekend and say, we're going to play harder. How's that? Work hard, play hard. Right, so you can do a bit of everything. I think as long as the friends are annulling to one another, as long as everybody wants to please everybody, you can always find that common point. But if everybody wants to do their own thing because they think this is how they're going to advance better, then you're just going to have problems. There's only one way to advance in spirituality, and I nullify my own desire. That's the only way. So if everybody nullified to the center of the group, you'd first of all come to the right conclusion. Second of all, because everybody nullified themselves, the Creator would have some room to work on you. And thus, henceforth, you'll all come to agreement, which everybody will be in favor. Now, some people want to socialize because they think through connection, they're going to move forward in spirituality faster. Some people think, well, let's do hardcore dissemination, and that will make us move in spirituality faster. So everybody is making a calculation. according to themselves, how can they get spiritual faster? Well, that's a wrong calculation, because the calculation should be, how can my friends get spiritual faster? And that can only be if I annul myself, if I annul my desire and go with the flow of the tens consensus. So if we're not nullifying ourselves, everybody wants to pull in their own direction, you won't get anywhere. Nice question, though. Okay. So in the 10, clarify your goal, clarify what you need to do, clarify the needs of everyone in your group. And if everybody has needs, then if you all come together, you can solve that problem by fulfilling everybody's needs. And that can happen, no problem. Just a matter of everybody nullifying and thinking about the benefit of others, not what they think, but according to how everybody feels the benefit of others rather than the benefit for themselves. All right, I hope that helps. We in our 10 are always talking, right? We always talk, we always discuss, we always want to make things better. We're always clarifying everything amongst ourselves. How should we do it? Rav said this, how are we going to integrate ourselves to that? And if everybody's contributing towards the direction they get from the Rav, you won't make a lot of mistakes. You won't make any. Well, I hope that helps and resolves the situation. Next week, we're going to move to something else. Okay, so make a note. All right, we'll move to something else. The important thing, let's make a little summary out of this mutual responsibility. The whole of reality, still vegetative, animate, and human speaking level, they're all interconnected. We have no other choice but to be dependent and interdependent on every level of creation, and also people in society as well. I depend on the farmer. I depend on the guy who drives the truck so that the food can get to the supermarket. I depend on the doctor. I depend on the nurse. I depend on the council worker. I don't know, the lawyer, the cab driver, everyone. Okay, because of everyone, we can all function. Right? So this is very important to understand. And then in a spiritual group, what is mutual responsibility? That responsibility is we take upon ourselves the spiritual development of all our friends in the group. So that instead of thinking about myself or my development, I'm always focused on how to develop that better connection towards the Creator, towards love and bestowal in my 10. And that is what mutual responsibility is. That is what our individual responsibility is. How to help the guys in the group as best I can so that they can advance in spirituality. Because if 10 got spiritual, the whole world would start developing. Okay? Because we impact everybody. This is also why we have a growing crowd. A lot of people listen to us, even though they may not study with us, they listen to us because they understand there's something here that they can take. And not everybody needs to study the wisdom of Kabbalah. Yeah? Nobody needs to be hardcore. Some people are hardcore, some people are light, some people are more. Everybody has a different character in life. And we have to respect the way that the Creator created everyone. Okay, and everybody is part of the whole. And we will also discover that everybody has a very unique individual place where nobody else can fill. So we need actually everyone. And this article allows us to see that from the perspective of our spiritual development. So if we can see that the world is interdependent, we can see in our spiritual development that we are interdependent. We all need to, what we have to do is to understand that the only way we're going to move forward is if we all connect together. If we all increase the love of friends between us. The more we work on that, the more we elevate that, everything else will decline, will be on the side, will not be bothering us. So that is what we all need to focus on. And once we do that, we'll come to a new perception of reality from a new point of observation from within. Instead of being an egoist wanting to get everything for myself. I'll be looking at life, at the world from a different perspective, from the perspective of the Creator, which is bestowal and loving, from the perspective of nature. And that's just how it is. All right. So we all need to do that in our tens, and we'll carry on studying other articles as they pop up. All right. So as you know, Tuesday nights, we're picking up articles from the morning lesson, and we're going to carry on doing that. But next Tuesday, we're going to start something new. And that's the essence of the wisdom, the essence of the principle of Arvut, how we are all responsible for each other, whether we like it or not. Okay. And we have to make sure that we integrate ourselves correctly so that our life can be actually good as well. In the meantime, have a good evening. Thank you to all the broadcast team who've been here and taking care of the friends. Have a great night.